Before you begin painting your monochromatic portrait, you should have your drawing already complete on your paper, and you should have a printed copy of the image that you are going to be painting. The first thing you need to do is figure out how many values you have, because that's how many values you are going to mix with your paint. So first I'm going to look and see what is the lightest value on my paper, and that's this value that's pretty much almost white, and I'm going to label it with the number 1. And I'm going to look around and see where do I see that value in a few other places, and I'm going to label those 1 also. And then the next darkest value would be this one, so that's a 2, and there's a 2, and there's a, this should be a 1, because this one matches this one, so that should be a 2. So I'm going to look around and see where I see other 2s, and I'm going to mark those down. There's a 1, there's a 2. And then the next darkest value is this one, so I'm going to make that a 3. And I'm going to follow that around. That's also a 3. And anywhere where I see a 3, I'm going to mark that value. The next one is going to be a 4. And one like this, where it has a lot of values, is going to be a little bit confusing, and it may take you a while to number. Okay, the next darkest value is this one. That's going to be a 5. And then I've got a 6 here, and a 7 here, an 8 here, and a 9 there. So there are 9 values in this picture. If I needed to, I could go through and mark all those and figure out what's what. But I'm pretty positive that I've got 9, so I feel confident about mixing that color now. Once you figure out how many values you have, bring your paper over to me, let me check it and just make sure that it's correct, and then you can start mixing your paint. Now that I have numbered all of my values, I know how many values I need to mix up in my palette. Since I have 9 values, I'm going to have 9 different values. You can choose whatever color you want to use for your monochromatic painting. I'm going to mix this up using orange, and then I need my white and my black for my light and dark colored values. Because the reason I've chosen orange is because orange is one of the hardest ones to mix and have it look good because it's a lighter color. If I were you, I would definitely stay away from yellow, but any of the other colors should work. Peach ends up looking not so great. Some of the kids that have done peach just haven't liked the way it's turned out. But other than peach and yellow, you can pretty much use anything that you want. So first I'm going to decide my lightest value. You can either have your lightest value be just straight white, or it can be white mixed with just a little bit of your color. I'm going to make it white mixed with a little bit of my color, which means I'm going to use mostly white. So this is going to be my number 1 value here in this circle. So I'm going to put a lot of white paint in there. And then your darkest value, you have several options. You could use black as your darkest value, or you could use black mixed with your color as your darkest value, or if you have chosen a dark color like blue or purple, you can just use your color as your darkest value and not use any black at all. Since orange is such a light color, it's going to be hard for me to get 9 values if I don't use black at all. So I'm definitely going to use black mixed with orange as my darkest value. So this is my first value, so I'm going up to 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is going to be my darkest value. I'm going to put just a little bit of orange in there. I'm going to end up adding mostly, like the rest of it is going to be mostly black because I need that value to be very dark. I'm not sure how many values I'm going to use with black. Maybe 3. And the reason I say that is because orange is such a light color. The rest of you will only have black mixed with your color probably for 1 value, for your darkest value. So I could go just black and orange to straight orange, but that would be too big of a jump. So I'm gonna say, I think that I will probably use, let's put this one, my middle value, as my straight orange color. So I'm gonna put a lot of orange there. That's just gonna be orange. And then I'm gonna put a lot of orange, but leave some space for some black there. And a little less orange here, and a little less orange here. The reason that I'm putting orange in all of these is when you're mixing colors, you always start with your lighter color. So since I'm mixing orange and black for these, I'm starting with my lighter color, which is orange, and I'm gonna add the black to that later. For these, I'm gonna be mixing white with orange. So I'm gonna start with white. This is gonna have the most white in it, and this is gonna have the least. So I'll just put a little bit of white in here, and gradually put a little bit more this way. I'm gonna put orange in the middle, just because I can dip from this orange to add to these circles that I'm gonna mix up. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. All right, so I'm gonna scoop just a little bit of orange and put that in here and stir it up for my lightest value. This is gonna be my number 1 value. There's not much of a difference, but that's fine. The darker you get, like if you get too dark too fast, it's gonna be hard to get 9 different values. 9 different values is a lot. If you have something like 5 values, then you can have a bigger jump from this color to this color because you don't have as many values that you're using. So I'm going to use more orange in this one and stir that up. All right, so that's kind of a big jump. I might have to add white to that later. We'll see how that goes. More orange to this one. And when you guys are watching this, if you are mixing your colors at the same time, press pause in between each color. Give yourself a chance to catch up. All right, now I can see a difference between here and here and here. So I'm gonna move on to this one, and I'm hoping that I can have a value that's in between this one and this one, because I want that one to stay orange. So to make the value darker here, I'm just adding more orange, and if I need to make it lighter, I can go back and add white later. It's so much easier to make a color darker than it is to make it lighter. I may have to put all that in there. Okay, I think that's gonna be good. Let's say you're mixing a color and it's just not getting lighter or darker, and you're filling up your palette circle, your palette well. You can go to the trash can and just scoop some of this paint out, toss it in the trash can, and then add the color that you need. Because if you've got just way too much white paint in there and you keep adding your color and it's not getting any darker, you gotta get rid of some of that white. All right, so that's good. Now, this is gonna be just orange, and then each of these is gonna have black in it. I don't want to start stirring that up yet because I've still got white in this paintbrush. And if I mix the white and the black with the orange, it's gonna be like I was mixing gray with orange. And then it's not gonna be as bright a color. The intensity is gonna be lost. So I'm gonna clean off the paint, rinse it out, clean it off again. Try to get the water out of your brush, otherwise you're gonna be thinning your paint down if you're mixing a lot of water into it. So this is a value that I'm not using. I don't need the 10th well. So I'm gonna put black in here and use that to dip into the values that need to be darker. And you don't need much black at all. All right, so I'm gonna put just a little bit of black in this one and see what happens. You hardly need any. All right, that's already a little bit darker. I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more though. All right, for the next circle, I can add a little bit more than I did the first time. If you don't like the kind of brownish greenish color that it's turning, like the way that the shade looks with orange, then stay away from orange. It won't look like this with any of the other colors. That's another reason why I would stay away from yellow. So this got too dark too fast, but I've got a lot of space left in the palette well, so I'm just gonna put more orange paint in there. All right, that's better. All right, I think I've got 9 shades that are easily different, starting with here, going all the way around to here, gradually getting darker all the way around. So at this point, I am ready to paint. Now, if you numbered your values and you only had 5, you don't need to be mixing 9. You're only gonna be mixing 5. So you're gonna have your lightest, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is gonna be your darkest. So if I only had 5 values, this one might be maybe this color, and maybe I would have just kind of 5 in between here like this. So you only need to use all of these circles if you actually have 9 different values in your picture. Another thing to think about too is I don't have a lot of paint in this one. I'm probably gonna run out of these colors before I finish. If that happens, I'm not gonna take all of my colors out and start over. I just need to make sure that I mix somewhere close to that value. Chances are you are not gonna mix the exact same color. So let's say I run out of this color first. I need to clean out this circle and make sure that I mix something that's darker than this, but lighter than that. So as long as it is in between here, it'll be fine when I'm painting to just keep painting with this value. When you're painting, there's no correct order to start in. It really doesn't matter. The way that I work, I would rather just do all one value at a time, but that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. It's whatever you want to do. But whatever is a number 1 value, you're going to paint with the number 1 paint circle that you mixed up. Anything that's a number 2, you're going to paint with your second color, and so on for all your other numbers. So basically, you've made your own paint by number picture. I'm going to start with just the number 1 values. So here's my number 1. I'm going to look for a place where there's a number 1 that I've labeled on my picture, and this area on the cheek is a number 1 value. I like to start by outlining the shape first. I will paint right up to the line all the way around. And sometimes you want to turn your paper so that your paintbrush is pointing to the line, and that's easier to control your paint. Most of your values will require 2 layers of paint. And I fill it in after I've outlined it. So for a shape like this, I can go ahead and fill in with the same paintbrush that I used to paint the outline. If I had a larger shape, I might put the smaller brush down and get a bigger shape to paint the middle. I'm going to paint the shape beside it just so you can see what it looks like to have 2 different values side by side, but generally I would probably go through and paint all the ones first. So if I'm moving on to the number 2 value, you need to make sure that if you rinse your paintbrush off, you wipe it off with a paper towel really good so you're not mixing water into your paint, because it will just keep thinning it out, and it will take longer to paint extra layers. So here's my number 2 value, and that's gonna go right here, right beside my number 1 value. If you have really heavy pencil lines, you want to erase them before you start painting. I mean, not completely, you still want to see them. But if they're really dark, you're not going to be able to paint over them. Your paint's not going to cover it up. But now that I've painted, you can see that the values are different. And there's a pretty good contrast between them. And I would just continue on like that.